Hey everybody, today I am going to be reviewing Evil Does Not Exist. This was directed by Ryusuke Hamaguchi. If you recall when I reviewed Drive My Car, it was a film that I truly was working through my feelings with it as it was going. And obviously I'm doing that with every film I watch, but with this one, it really felt like I was putting in the work. It was a movie that was both frustrating and hypnotizing to me. It was a feeling that settled into my bones in a way that I just couldn't shake it, but eventually it just kind of crystallized. And I think with time, the experience has stayed with me in a really magnificent way overall. Evil Does Not Exist, by contrast, was actually meant to be a short film, but from what I understand, during the production of it, they just began to unfold and they decided, hey, let's make it into a feature film. But even so, it's still relatively short. It's under 2 hours, at least compared to some of Hamaguchi's previous works. But what we have here is a film that really, really fucked with me. And I have not been so baffled by a film's conclusion in a long time. I feel like we almost have a masterpiece on our hands here. So much of this film I feel like connects and it's beautifully woven together. And I have seen the film twice. I'm still working through it. I'm not sure whether tonally I think that the ending works based on the setup of the film. Because how it arrives at the climax is incredibly unique. We could call it experimental. And there was no way in hell I was going to review this after having just seen it once. This is an eco-fable of sorts. It's about a father and his young daughter, and they live in this village in the mountains in Japan. It's a very tight-knit community where every natural resource they have available, they're trying to take advantage of it while also trying to achieve some sort of Zen balance, I think, like harmony between the human world and the natural world. But the conflict is that the village is going through some major changes. A corporation is coming in and they're trying to build this camping resort to attract tourism in the area. Hamaguchi films naturally make you think of Ozu films. I think he's maybe the most clear influence here that you could draw from, just the stillness and the quiet observation of life and its structure. This movie reminds me of one of those fountain things where it's like the water is filling up part of the fountain and then it dumps it out before it, goes back up and then it fills all over again. It's very much that sort of cleanse and rinse and repeat sort of thing. And there is a feeling of repetition and natural cadence that you're just kind of easing into with the filmmaking. I actually found myself with this particular film thinking about Ingmar Bergman, particularly The Virgin Spring, and that's a movie that has kind of a folktale mysticism to it, but also a still unwavering power, and there are these sharp splinters within the beauty that jolt you out of this enchantment. It's not like you feel a violence or like a brutality necessarily throughout the movie, but there is just a weight that is planted in the viewer's mind. What I love about Hamaguchi is how he's able to achieve a sort of enlightenment, or at least explore his philosophies by kind of sifting through all kinds of human behavior. The details and the mood and the inner lives of his characters are so fully formed. It's, you don't need to probe the backstory that much. It's like you can already feel it. It's so true to life, the way that when you meet somebody, that energy slowly builds between two people very realistically. But obviously so many relationships are complex, and he never shies away from that, which I appreciate. Evil, I think, in humans does exist, just not in the ways that we often think. There are often a multitude of factors that contribute. You have these two people from an agency that are presenting the camping project to the villagers, and it's a male and a female. The male of the party seems to be, fairly normal. He's just kind of like an average guy. Not particularly perceptive. I'd say he's idealistic and quite selfish. I think he has curiosity, but that often narrows his perspective in the same breath. As in, I don't think he recognizes that he is selfish and idealistic in those ways. But he's not a bad guy, and neither is the female character here, though she has more of a nurturing softness to her, I think, and she doesn't seem to be so self-centered. She's a little bit more perceptive. But both of them, I think, have hearts. They have good intentions with these villagers, and they are on their side. And then you have our main character, the head of the village, and I think he gives a remarkable performance because it is so unassuming. There is this key focus in his eyes, but it's very focused on his duties. It's like he's always in action. He's always looking past people because, again, he has so much to do. But there is a weariness there, and as the character starts to evolve, you see that intensity in his eyes is perhaps maybe a defense mechanism or a way to cover up a lot of pain that he is carrying within him. But that's something that, again, the movie is slowly going to pick at until it erupts. There are a lot of directorial decisions in this movie that are very interesting, and at the opening of the film, I wasn't sure how all of these stray elements were going to work together to build a cohesive story. The opening shot is the camera looking up at the sky, and it's in motion. And you're seeing all of these kind of wiry tree branches kind of laying over it as if we're looking at like a lung through an x-ray. And after a while, I start to wonder, what is this point of view supposed to represent? Eventually, we do see that, you know, we see the daughter walking in the woods and she's looking up. So we're wondering, oh, okay, so is this meant to be her perspective in the woods? Or is the camera meant to be like the perspective of nature, almost in the same way that like the camera is the perspective of the hotel in The Shining? Or is this a literal situation where it's like, no, this is actually a camera, and it's like we're meant to be very aware of that meta angle. There's a moment where we see these villagers and they are collecting water and they're going upstream, and as they're walking in the woods, suddenly our main character spots something. It's like he's looking directly at the camera, and I was like, whoa, that was a very jarring moment, because yeah, I was like, are we breaking the fourth wall here? And if so, why are we doing that? Because again, that's a very bold, very aggressive visual statement to make so early on. There are often, you know, breaks in logic in the film. Sometimes that can be very mystifying, and other times it does feel almost as if it's a mistake. The daughter might be staring at something, but you know, her reaction, whatever she's seeing, is not matching, not even close. It's meant to be a very dreamy sort of situation. And like I said, you know, at times it feels like some of these intentions are very pointed, and at other times it's like, I don't know if they really thought it through that much, that the symbolism and all of that. I almost feel like it's just kind of, they're going by instinct. It's a film that feels like it has eyes everywhere. It has eyes that are like in the backs of cars as it's driving on a road. It has eyes looking up at the stars. Eyes as we observe the villagers going back home, but we always are doing just what feels instinctual. And I feel like the same can be said for the title. Obviously, it's a very bold title. It's meant to be a statement. It's meant to be provoking. You could almost think of it as a thesis of sorts, but it's not. Or at least I don't think it's meant to be. I think it's just meant to carry a feeling. It's meant to carry like the dissonant undercurrent of the film, that whatever it's carrying inside. Ultimately, I think you can look at that title, you can either entertain it or you can reject it, maybe a little bit of both. But again, I don't think that it's meant to be very absolute so far as, you know, determining some sort of conclusive statement about the film. So yes, while there is a simplicity to the film, and yes, an instinctual aspect to it, there is a lot of heavy symbolism going on here. But I love these symbols because so many times when I watch these very arty types of movies, those symbols never really touch the ground. They don't feel connected to anything. It feels like everything was set in motion long ago and we're just, you know, kind of layering in the details here. Now, I only say this to an extent because the film is very slow and meditative, like I said, in the first 2 acts of the film, and then the editing starts to leave something to be desired. It starts to feel very abrupt. And that is, I think, by design, because there needs to be like a sharp thorn in the side of the film that is always preparing to reveal itself. And it represents the way things can be carelessly destroyed and the way that, you know, the next life cycle begins. It's rinse, repeat, and it's very cold. Part of me also feels like the way the movie is built up, it's just so delicate and so full of nuance that when we get to the ending of the movie, it feels like it's almost unfinished, or it didn't quite tie in all of the symbolism together where it all feels fully formed. It's almost as if something went wrong in the editing, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. There are, yes, the implications of like this dreaminess versus reality and trying to discern the difference. And in the end, maybe it is a distortion of reality, and we are seeing maybe the compulsion of humans in a survival dynamic. But it just feels like the climax is just building to this fever pitch, and then it just kind of stumbles, and it's like, okay, the execution it's just very perplexing. It was like not enough was set up here in this climax in order for the payoff to feel really resonant in the ways that I think it wanted to. When I saw the film the second time, I was hoping that a lot of that earlier symbolism would feel more pronounced and it would help carry out the ending a little bit better. But no, I was still very confused. Something just felt like it was missing, and there was too much ambiguity here. It almost reminded me of the ending of The Sopranos, which a lot of people consider very experimental. Obviously, that made a ton of people angry, you know, initially, but you know, now it's considered one of the great endings. I personally think it's one of the greatest endings of anything ever. But I think the abruptness of that ending, when you go back and watch the show, it does make sense. Even if the ending, it wasn't necessarily forged from, you know, the pilot episode. And yet the philosophy and the direction that the show is heading in, it's all so intact that it's like, you cannot imagine the show ending in any other way. And there are plenty of clues just padding the entire show from day one that make that existential conclusion feel perfectly right to me the more that I watch it. And again, maybe I need to see Evil Does Not Exist more and more. Maybe over the years it will resonate for me in different ways. And it's still bugging me. I think about this ending all the time. But yeah, other than that, like I said, I think this is a near masterpiece. Despite my frustrations, I could still watch this movie, I feel like, every day of the week. And I feel like if you are a cinephile, if you're a film lover, then I think you have to see this film, particularly, you know, if you loved movies like Drive My Car. This is an absolute must. And I'm very curious about what you guys, you know, think about the ending, how you read it. This is a spoiler-free review, but yeah, go ahead in the comments and talk about it. But that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website. As always, it is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits and I sell prints of my work. If that's something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are great. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to all the new members. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.